Hello, hello, hello. Right, today I am going to talk about being too scared to leave. Now, when you are in a relationship that is controlling, is abusive, maybe mentally, physically, emotionally, then very often, and I myself have been guilty of this too, very often we don't leave because we're too scared. We're too scared of the consequences. We're too scared of what's going to happen. We've received threats of, if you leave, I'll find you and I'll kill you if nobody else can have you. If I can't have you, nobody else can have you. If life's not worth living, if you go, I'll kill myself. All sorts of manipulations and tactics and terror that they throw upon us. And, they will veer between angry and hateful, I would say, and threatening, to feeling very much like putting themselves in victim mode, that they're going to kill themselves. How could you leave me like this? I'm nothing without you, blah, 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 blah. I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again, blah, 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 blah. But they use the same tactics over and over and over again. So they say, I love you so much. Well, if they love you so much, why are they doing this to you? And if they say they'll never do it again, well, yeah, but they've said that how many times? How many times have they told you that they're never going to do it again? And yet they do. And how many times have they told you that they can't help it? They can't help how they behave because they were drunk and they don't remember. They can't help it. They can't control it when you wind them up so much. Well, I'm sorry, but you didn't wind them up so much. They chose to be wound up, and they also chose when to hurt you, because they do it when nobody's around. They do it when there are no witnesses. Therefore, that says that they can control it. So what they're saying is a lie. And we're terrified. We're just absolutely full of fear about what will happen if we leave. Because either something will happen to your partner and you'll feel blame, or something will happen to you and it will suddenly be all your fault. And they use this as a tactic to keep you chained, to keep you in the relationship so that you don't leave. And it's not because they love you so much. It's because you are a source of money, a source of sex, a source of cleaning duties, a source of cook, maid, whatever else you do for them, driver, And once you're out from that relationship, you can see it a lot more clearly. But when you're still in that relationship, you can't see it. And you still are looking for that person that first got you into the relationship, that loving, kind, thoughtful person that you meant the world to and that they couldn't live without. And you're just terrified of what will happen, fear completely and utterly of walking away. You could be tied up with them financially. You could have money in assets, like a house, a property, a car, anything. And what I would say to anybody stuck in that situation is assets are just stuff that can be worked out. What can't be worked out is you being continually abused because you feel trapped, because you fear what will happen if you leave. And I can tell you now that I went through all of those threats and I'm still here. And probably much to the disgust of that person, but I'm still here. I'm still going, and I'm still kicking and screaming, and I'm still living my life, and I'm still doing what I want, because now I do what I want. I have my own life, and I have gone through all of those emotions. I have gone through all of those fears. I have gone through all of those doubts about myself. And when I look at it now, I look at it that I was a source of money. I was a source of income, because my income paid all the bills. So his money was pocket money, free money. Yeah. My money paid for everything. So I had pretty much nothing left. I didn't really have any free money, maybe, sort of £10 or £20 a month free money that I could use for myself. I didn't have enough money to go to the beauty salon. I didn't have enough money to go pay for my nails to get done every other week. I didn't have anything like that. And I was constantly pushed to earn more, to do more, to get another job, to find other work that would bring in more money. Yet when they weren't working, that was fine. When they weren't working and were supposed to be looking after the child, so the child wasn't in full-time nursery, then they spent their time getting drunk. So they weren't fit to look after a child. So the child still ended up being in nursery because I couldn't rely on that person to actually look after the child safely. And I very kind of slowly, very, very slowly, I mean, it took years for me to realize this because I wasn't ready to listen to anybody. I wasn't ready to believe anybody else that actually I could escape from this situation. And I was too ashamed to tell anybody what was happening because I didn't want to be blamed. I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want people to look at me and go, oh, look at her. She can't even keep a husband. Look, oh, she's talking about, being abused. I didn't want to be judged because I didn't want people to think that I was stupid or a victim or, I didn't want to go through all of that. But in reality, nobody would have thought that. I was just making this all up in my head because I was just thinking it, just thinking that all these people would think this, that, and the other of me, when in reality, they weren't going to think anything. They would just, for the majority, it was a case of, thank God you're away from that now. Thank goodness that you're out. They were so happy for me. And anybody that I didn't know that had an opinion, I didn't really care because I didn't know them. So who cares what they think? But it's only now, having gone through the whole therapy process and recognizing all the different signs of abuse, I kind of fell into a normal, if that makes sense. I fell into a new normal because the abuse didn't start straight off. It wasn't in your face. It started tiny. And then the more they got away with, the more happened. And I think that gradual integration of abuse into a relationship it just catches you blindsided. It really does. You don't see it because it's just becomes such a normal for you, and you don't see it as different because it's just integrated as part of your life. And it's only when you're actually away from it that you see how messed up it was. You see how many different levels of abuse were actually there. You see what type of abuse perpetrator you had. I would definitely recommend for anybody that's look up the Freedom Project and the way that they teach you the different abusers actually operate and because even though every abuser is different, the way they do things, there is a similarity. It's almost like there's a school for abusers and they've all graduated with honours because they all use the same tactics. Honestly, it's weird how they do it. I have no idea how they. I mean, is there a secret school they go to? Is there a separate class that they have at high school that the girls don't get to go to, that the boys get to go to? And some girls get to go to, it's not every boy and it's not every girl, but because the methods and the tactics that they use are so similar, every single one, you're kind of like, really? There is such a similarity, and it's so coincidental how they all kind of, follow the same path. But at the end of the day, that also means that we know the path that they have taken, we know the tactics that they're using, and we know how to overcome them. So there is hope. So if you are trapped in that situation, or you have recently come out of that situation, please know that this was not your fault. This was not your choice of relationship. You got blindsided. You didn't know when you first started this relationship, you did not know that this was how it was going to turn out. Had you known, you may well have made a very, very different decision, but you didn't know. So because you didn't know, you just went ahead with it, and you were in love, and you were given this vision of this wonderful person that loved you and was committed and just loved you so much. And they kind of sweep you off your feet, and they they create this kind of chemical bond. There's words for it called a trauma bond, that happens after a while, after you get so sort of sorted into this pit of despair that you have kind of been thrown in, and then they create these highs of being really lovely to you, and then suddenly it's horrible again, and then they're nice to you again, and then it's horrible again. And I did a whole different video on trauma bonds, so if you want to see it, if you haven't seen it already, then let me know and I'll send it to you. But trauma bond is a very, very real thing, and psychological abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, all of the abuses, all of the different types of abuse that can happen, you didn't choose for that to happen. And although other people can see it clearly, when you are in that situation, that veil of that shroud is still on that abuse. You can't see it because you are not seeing clearly, because you are being blindsided by this wonderful vision of this perfect person that absolutely loves the bones of you and just would do anything for you, because you're being tricked, you're being lied to, and that person does not exist. Because once they have you in their clutches, then they start with the little abuse, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Depending on how much they get away with, they'll just keep pushing it until they get a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more. Okay? So this is really my way of saying to you guys that there is hope. There is a way out. And quite often when you are stuck into this fear of leaving, it's very, very hard to leave alone. And it's much easier to leave when you have support. And that support can be from a domestic violence abuse or abuse service. Every town has one pretty much. Google your town and domestic abuse in your Google or Bing or whatever you use. There will be a service in your town, and if not in your town, in the nearest city. So there will be some kind of domestic abuse support. There is online support. There are Facebook groups for victims of abuse, survivors of abuse. I run one, Toxic Relationship Survivors Group. I also run the Secret Sisters Society, which is women for women. If you want to join them, just let me know. That's fine. And it's important to know that you can escape from this. You can walk away from this, and your world is not going to implode. And by walking away, you are not only taking a stand and showing any children that you have that this is not okay to be treated like this, but you're also teaching yourself that it is not okay to be treated like this. So that next time you enter a relationship, you will not tolerate that kind of behavior, because you will see it for what it is much, much earlier. And you will recognize the signs and you will say, no, I'm not doing this again. Because so many times we leave an abusive relationship and we don't realize what's happened. We don't see it. We don't realize the depth of control and twistedness that they have created inside of us. And until we actually get help, until we actually have that kind of support that will help us get through it, then we keep getting back in those relationships and we end up with another abuser and then maybe another abuser. So it's really important that we actually seek support. And it took me years. I am the first to admit it took me years. It took an intervention from my sister. My big sister basically sat me down and said, look, Jen, you are still impacted by what happened to you. You're still living in that kind of realm, and you need to deal with it. And I was very much in denial. I was like, I'm fine, I'm okay. And then I realized how much control it still impacted on me, and I didn't want somebody else to have that much control over me, over my decisions, over my behaviors, over my attitudes. I did not want that person to still have that control over me, because I had escaped from the relationship physically, but I hadn't mentally escaped from that relationship. And it took years of therapy. It took years of counseling. It took me years to actually overcome all of that. And I vowed at the end of that I was going to help other people not actually take that long to go, because it took me I was 15 years in that relationship, and it took me, I would say, a good 12 years before I started to recover. So 27 years of being under that person's control. That's a lifetime. I could have committed murder and been out on parole by then, way before then. So what I'm telling you is that you don't have to spend your life waiting for the hammer to fall. But if you want to recover, and if you want to recover more swiftly, then you need help to do it, because it won't happen just on your own. It will take you forever. So contact me. You can comment on here. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me anywhere. If you want help, let me know. We can talk it out. We can work out what is available for you. But in the meantime, I hope that this information has helped you to reframe maybe some of those thoughts that are in your head, and maybe take you a step closer to doing what you need to do, whatever that step is. Because I apply no judgment, no blame, no shame. Whatever stage you're at in that relationship, that is exactly where you need to be to learn that lesson, so that you can move forward. So all of these things that we're learning help us to grow. They help us to evolve. Sometimes they give us a gift, like I wouldn't have my son had it not been for that relationship. And I consider him to be a blessing. So why would I regret what happened? I don't. I've learned from that experience. So I've come to peace. I've come to a beautiful peace of what happened, and what has come from going through that experience. And that's the way that I look at it, is I've learned an awful lot of coming from that experience that has helped me become the person I am today, and will help me to continue to help other women to escape their situation. So I'm going to leave you in peace now. Go off and enjoy your day, and see you soon. Hold on.